So what inspired me or motivated me to write this book was I grew up in West Virginia, and there was a lot of really neat places in our state that I hadn't known about as a kid, and I learned about when I was in college. And I was inspired by how much West Virginia has to offer, and I wanted to kind of write a book that included some of those things about West Virginia that I love, so that the next generation can learn to appreciate our state as well. So we'll go ahead and get into the story. It was another normal day at the good zoo. Normal for the good zoo meant wild. Wild because of 3 lively lions, Teresa, Colby, and Sienna. Let's see the illustration. Got the zookeeper trying to get them out of there. While these 3 lived together, they didn't particularly like each other. They fought like siblings trapped in a car during a 12-hour road trip with no bathroom breaks. Yikes. They fought in the morning, in the afternoon, and of course, dinner time was no different. Have you guys ever been trapped in a car ride for 12 hours, no bathroom breaks? That would be terrible. Take a look at the illustrations. Playing a little trick with some bees and honey. There was a rumor that the zookeeper was going to replace them with more gentle lions. Despite their bickering, they decided to work together in order to avoid being replaced. They escaped under the cover of evening. Their bedtime was 8 p.m. after all. Picture they're plodding away to escape from the zoo. That zookeeper is not happy with them. Needless to say, at 8:01, mayhem ensued. "They're gone!" shouted the zookeeper. It was a soda-spilling, trash cans tipping, popcorn popping kind of time. Uh-oh, look at them. Sneaking out in the middle of the beginning of the night. The only inhabitants at peace among the chaos were the lions. They slipped out right in front of the gate and ran and ran and, oh yeah, ran. Look at them, everyone panicking, and they're calmly just sneaking away. They ran past a giant yellow mansion. They zoomed past a stadium full of blue and gold with voices shouting, "Let's go." They splashed through a waterfall, which was good because by this time they were parched. Parched means super thirsty. I once read this story to a group of first graders, and one of them asked, "What does parched mean?" And we explained that it just means you're really, really, really thirsty. And we told them next time you need to get a drink of water, just say that tell your teacher that you're parched. And they thought that was funny. After the bath, Teresa said, "This way," and headed to the left. Colby said, "That way," and turned to the right. Sienna said, "No way," and went straight ahead. Not getting along too well. Mayhem ensued again. It was a splish-splashing, dirt-digging, leaf-lobbing kind of time. "Fine," said the 3 of them in unison, and off they went, each in a different direction. One couldn't decide between left, right, or straight ahead, and all they could do was fight. They couldn't figure it out. Meanwhile, back at the zoo, the humans were still in chaos. The zookeeper asked everyone he met if they had seen the missing trio. A few travelers who arrived on the Cass Railroad said, yes, they were roaming through the hills. The local baker said, yes, they were eating donuts in my shop. Who knew lions like donuts? Looks like they're having a good time there, back when they were still together. The mayor said, yes, they were walking down Main Street. The trio continued on their separate ways, trotting along in their travels. Teresa ventured to a vast lake surrounded by skyscraping, jagged rocks. Colby made it all the way to a shiny golden dome, where he saw a big green thundering herd, not like the ones in the wild, though. Sienna hiked up to the bridge that spanned all the way across the valley. Let's check out their separate adventures. We got a lake with jagged rocks. Does anyone know where that is? A thundering herd and a big bridge that spans the valley. Each began to miss the others and the trio they once had. What have I done? Thought each lion. Lonely and ashamed, they each continued walking and climbing and jumping and leaping. They're all starting to have some regrets. Until they each came upon an overlook and decided to stop. As they approached, they saw each other. It's like they found each other again. Anyone recognize that overlook? They began to appreciate each other just as much as the sights they had seen. Together, they sat and watched the sunset. Mayhem did not ensue. They didn't fight, didn't hiss, didn't claw or spit. Something had changed during their journey. All right, now pay attention to this picture right here. It's actually the last picture in a book that a teacher was reading. The sun set on their adventure that night, but that was not the end. The teacher gently shut the book that she was reading to the class. So this is actually a story a teacher was reading to her class. Where are they now? She asked. Some say these wild, wonderfully and lively lions are still living in the hills of West Virginia, constantly roaming and enjoying the views. So maybe they're skiing. There's a lot of good places to ski in West Virginia. Maybe they're just hanging out, camping somewhere in the mountains. Or my favorite, maybe they're eating some pepperoni rolls somewhere. The teacher said, I believe the story of the lions is within our hearts, she said. We were made to seek and find beauty. We were made to be free. This wonderfully wild life was created for you and me. Check out who's in that window. The end. Now here at the end of the book, there's a few fun facts we have here. One thing we added at the end was, so some other states share some of our state symbols. For example, our nickname is the Mountain State. Have you guys ever heard that? West Virginia is the Mountain State. Vermont has a similar nickname. They're the Green Mountain State. So we're the Mountain State, they're the Green Mountain State. Our motto is Montani Semper Libri, which means mountaineers are always free. And of course, no one shares that with us. Our state tree is the sugar maple, and New York, Vermont, and Wisconsin also have that as their state tree, sugar maple. See if you guys can see that little chart. Our state flower is a rhododendron. Washington also has that as their state flower. Our state animal is a black bear. And Alabama, Louisiana, and New Mexico all have that as their state animal also. Now, our state fish, we share this with a lot of people. Georgia, Michigan, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Vermont, and Virginia all have the brook trout as their state fish. And our state bird is the red cardinal. The red cardinal, which is also shared with Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, North Carolina, Ohio, and Virginia. So some fun little facts about our state symbols and what other states share those with us. Now, this is my favorite little thing we added to the end of the book. It's the Wonderfully Wild bucket list. These are some of the adventures that the lions had in the story, and these are some of my favorite adventures in West Virginia. So once we're done with quarantine, whenever that's over and you guys are able to go do things again, maybe you can add one of these little adventures to your post-quarantine bucket list. So some of the things on here: visit a waterfall, explore mountains, visit a lake, eat a pepperoni roll. This you can do now. You can make some homemade pepperoni rolls at home. I did that this past week, and they were gone pretty quickly. Visit a zoo, enjoy winter sports, and enjoy a train ride, and visit a historic town. These are all some of my favorite things to do in West Virginia, and some stuff that they did in this story. So I hope whenever you're able to get out and do things again, you'll add some of these things on your bucket list. And over here, I have recommendations for some of the best places to visit these things. Okay, so my favorite place to visit, this is hard. I used to live in Morgantown, and I loved to visit Cooper's Rock and Raven Rock out there. And then Dolly Sods in Dry Fork, West Virginia. I've only been once. I was there in the middle of the summer, and everything there was in full bloom. It was gorgeous. It was one of my favorite places in West Virginia. That was Dolly Sods. It's in Dry Fork, West Virginia. Definitely recommend it. I love it. And then I also love to go snowboarding at Snowshoe. I sadly did not have the chance this year. We didn't have much snow, and we ended up not having a good weekend to go do that. But I love snowboarding at Snowshoe. I think it is such a cute little town, and I'm hoping we can get back there maybe next year. How did I come up with the idea for the book? So, like I grew up in West Virginia, and when I went to college at West Virginia University, they do Adventure West Virginia trips, and on that trip, I got to see all these great places in West Virginia, a lot of which are included in this bucket list. And it really kind of opened my eyes to how awesome West Virginia is. I previously didn't realize we had so much going on in our state, which is embarrassing to say because I grew up here my whole life. And there were so many hidden gems in my own home state that I hadn't explored. So once I got to explore that and get to know that, I wanted to put that into a book and share that with the younger generation so that they can grow up appreciating their state of West Virginia. And just to help other people outside of our state realize that this is an awesome place to visit. I love West Virginia. I think we have so much going on for us. And yeah, I just really wanted to showcase that idea in a story. All right, it looks like we have some people joining. So I'm gonna go ahead and read this story one more time. Okay, so again, this is The Wonderfully Wild Ones. It was written by me, Adeline Schneid, or Boggs. I got married after this book came out, and it was illustrated by Ashley Baylott. All right, in the front cover here, we've got this cute little illustration that Ashley did. Lions stealing, looks like they're stealing the name tag and the hat from the zookeeper. Let's see what happens with that. Okay. Oh, on our dedication page, there's the zookeeper without his hat, some mischievous lion with his name tag and someone else with his hat. I dedicated this book to the people and future of West Virginia. All right. It was another normal day at the Good Zoo. Normal for the Good Zoo meant wild. Wild because of 3 lively lions, Teresa, Colby, and Sienna. Check out this illustration. Looks like they put some donuts into a trap and caught 2 of the lions. I don't know about you, but donuts would definitely lure me into a trap. While these 3 lions lived together, they didn't particularly like each other. They fought like siblings trapped in a car during a 12-hour road trip with no bathroom breaks. Yikes. They fought in the morning, in the afternoon, and of course, dinner time was no different. As you can see, they're still fighting and playing tricks on each other. Got some bees set on this one. Doesn't look like they get along too well. There was a rumor that the zookeeper was going to replace them with more gentle lions. Despite their bickering, they decided to escape together in order to avoid being replaced. They escaped under the cover of evening. Their bedtime was 8 p.m. after all. Look, they're finally working together to plot their escape. They really don't want to be replaced. Needless to say, at 8:01, mayhem ensued. The only zoo inhabitants at peace among the chaos were the lions. They slipped out right at the front of the gate and ran, and oh yeah, they ran. See everyone panicking, and then these 3 lions are just slipping out under cover of dark. They ran past a giant yellow mansion. They zoomed past a stadium full of blue and gold with voices shouting, "Let's go." Who knows what comes after that? Let's go. They splashed through a giant waterfall, which was good because this time the lions were parched. I once read this story to a group of first graders, and one of them asked me what parched meant, and I explained how it just means really, 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 really thirsty. And then the whole class said that from now on, when they needed to get a drink of water, they were going to tell their teacher that they were parched. And that was pretty funny. After their bath, Teresa said, "This way," and headed to the left. Colby said, "That way," and turned to the right. Sienna said, "No way," and went straight ahead. Mayhem ensued again. It was a splish-splashing, dirt-digging, leaf-lobbing kind of time. "Fine," said the 3 in unison, and off they went, each in a different direction. Back at the zoo, the humans were still in chaos looking for the lions. The zookeeper asked everyone that he met if they had seen the missing trio. A few travelers who arrived on the Cass Railroad said, yes, they were roaming through the hills. The local baker said, yes, they were eating donuts in my shop. Who knew lions like donuts? We saw in the beginning that they used donuts to trap one of the other lions. The mayor said, yes, they were walking down Main Street. The trio continued on their separate ways, trotting along in their travels. Teresa ventured to a vast lake surrounded by skyscraping jagged rocks. Colby made it all the way to a shiny golden dome, where he saw a thundering herd, not like the ones in the wild, though. Sienna hiked up to a bridge that spanned all the way across the valley. Check out these adventures they're all having. Does anyone recognize this lake, the thundering herd, and a bridge that spans all the way across the valley? Each began to miss the others and the trio they once had. What have I done? They each thought. Lonely and ashamed, they each continued walking and climbing and jumping and leaping. So they're starting to feel some regrets. They're not quite sure what to do now. Until they each came upon an overlook and decided to stop. As they approached, they saw each other. Anyone recognize that overlook? They began to appreciate each other just as much as the sights they had seen along the way. Together, they sat and watched the sunset. Mayhem did not ensue. They didn't fight, didn't hiss, didn't claw or spit. Something had changed during their journey. Something changed between these lions. Check out that picture. Notice the red cardinal in the top. They're definitely a changed group. Now pay attention to this picture. When I flip it, a teacher was actually reading this story to her class. This is actually a book that a teacher was reading to her students. The sun set on their adventure that night, but that was not the end. The teacher gently shut the book. Where are they now? She asked the class. Where do you think these lions are? Some say that these wild, wonderful, and lively lions are living in the hills of West Virginia, constantly roaming and enjoying the views. So who knows, maybe they're skiing at Snowshoe, or maybe they're hanging out at some campgrounds, or my favorite, maybe they're eating some pepperoni rolls. However, the teacher said, I believe the story of the lions is within our hearts. We were made to find beauty and we were made to be free. This wonderfully wild life was created for you and me. Check out those little visitors in the window. The end. Now here at the end, we have some of my, down here, the bucket list. These are some of my favorite places to visit in West Virginia. So maybe once we're post-quarantine life, you guys can add some of these adventures to your plans. And then up here, we have the West Virginia state symbols and the states that share that symbol with us. So for example, our state tree is a sugar maple, and that's also the state tree of New York, Vermont, and Wisconsin. And then for our state animal, it's a black bear, which is also shared by Alabama, Louisiana, and New Mexico. All right. And if you check out this last illustration, remember how those lions at the beginning, they were really mischievous and kind of mean and stole the zookeeper's name tag and boots and hat? Remember during the story they changed a little bit, something had changed in their attitude? Check out what they did to the best zookeeper. They gave back his boot and name tag. So something had definitely changed. They definitely became better lions. They had much better characteristics. So I hope everyone is finding time to read while they're home. That's one of the things I've been so glad I've had more time to do. One of the positive things from this, I've been reading a lot more books because I enjoy reading, and it's one of those things that I never made enough time for. So I hope you guys are finding time to read books, read stories. I'm also a teacher, and what I told all of my families and anyone I talk to with kids is the best advice, best thing I can tell you to do right now is just to read stories with your kids. Just read. It's one of the best ways to keep learning going and add, some happy, positive memories to this. And then one thing on the bucket list that we can do during quarantine life is make pepperoni rolls. So maybe that's something you can add to your quarantine activities. Find a homemade pepperoni roll recipe, or maybe you have a family pepperoni roll recipe, and do that during quarantine, and then check out this bucket list and plan some activities for post-quarantine life. All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I'm so glad you were able to join in and listen to this story. I love this story, and I hope you guys love it too. All right. Thank you. Bye.